Welcome to the Alchemy, Astrology, and Astro Health podcast. I'm Ira Etla, medical astrologist, astroherbalist, and green witch. I was diagnosed with endometriosis at 19, and I was told I would never have children. I healed my body through the power of herbs, alternative health practitioners, energy healing, and more. At 28, I had the baby they said I would never have, without any interventions. I refused to believe that my body was not able to heal itself. Along this journey, I stumbled across medical astrology, and it resonated with me so much. I started down the path to learning this unique system that had been used for thousands of years in the medical community. I now help other women heal their bodies using their cosmic blueprint, the unique blueprint that every person has embedded in their DNA from the stars. This system helps me see what's going on in your body on a cosmic level and exactly how to help you give your body what it needs to heal itself. We are all uniquely and amazingly designed, and when we learn to work with our design, love ourselves for how we are designed to function, and integrate the cosmos into our lives, I truly believe that we can see true and lasting health brought into our lives. If you are ready to change your life, heal your body, and learn to deeply love who you are, this podcast is for you. Come join me as I discuss medical astrology, astronutrition, astroherbalism, health, wellness, spirituality, transformation, and so much more. I'm so excited you are joining me. I got y'all. Let me tell you about this brand new offering that is coming out this week. I want to introduce you to the Astro Aligned Kitchen. Have you been really tired of starving yourself and cutting out entire food groups for like weeks or months at a time and trying to remember what is and is not allowed on whatever diet you're doing this week? Me too. I am so over the diet culture way of starving myself and not allowing myself to enjoy life because of whatever restrictive diet I'm on now. Right? So when I found medical astrology and astronutrition, that literally changed my life. I learned my cosmic blueprint and exactly how my body is designed to use nutrients, which one it needs more of, and the best foods for my body. Best of all, I really learned how to properly nourish and fuel my body for the activities that I love to do, i.e., heavy weightlifting in the gym. So I had no more feeling faint at the gym because I haven't eaten since 6 p.m. the day before and skipped pre-workout meal ahead of time because the diet says that working out on an empty stomach is better, right? No more feeling hungry all the time. No more guessing what was best or not for my body. And best of all, no more restrictive eating because fuck that. Your body is cosmically designed to function at its best when you align the nutrients that your metabolism needs to work optimally. And this is all determined by your Mars placement. So knowing where your Mars placement is in your natal chart helps you to understand what nutrients your body needs the most to function at its best. For example, my Mars placement is in Virgo, so I need a high protein intake as well as ensuring that I get plenty of fat soluble vitamins daily. And then, due to my Saturn in Scorpio, I also need to focus on more alkaline and fermented foods with plenty of fiber. So when I started following this, right, and nourishing my body with nutrient dense whole foods, I started feeling better than I have in years. I was able to release 30 pounds in a year, and I did not starve myself or work out at the gym until I literally passed out or felt like I was going to, right? I enjoyed life again because no foods were off limits. This meant I could eat pizza, ice cream, birthday cake, donuts, all of the carbs. And let me tell you, I did not miss one, and I did not feel guilty while doing it. But what I really found was it was hard to nourish my body properly during this when my kitchen was still full of all of the foods that my body just didn't like as well as others. And so I started by cleaning it out and starting over fresh. And I've had so many clients over the last year ask me how I managed to keep on cooking nutrient dense foods for 3 meals a day when they were struggling and it seemed so hard. So step number one is setting yourself up for success, right? And that is what Astro Aligned Kitchen is designed to do. In this one of a kind program, you will learn how to determine your cosmic blueprint, what that means in terms of your metabolism, and how to best nourish your body based on your design. And then after all of that, we work through cleaning out your kitchen and setting it back up for success and nourishing your body with nutrient dense whole foods from now until forever. So if you're hearing this and going, fuck yeah, how do I sign up? Scroll down to the show notes and click on the link. This will take you to the Astro Aligned Kitchen program. It is waiting for you, and I am super excited to have you join me in this one of a kind program. Let's kick diet culture to the curb forever. And I will see you inside the kitchen. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Alchemy, Astrology, and Astro Health. I'm your host, Ira Atla, and I am here today with Erin. Erin is an Akashic alchemist, an intuitive medium, and a spiritual mentor, shamanic practitioner, an angelic healer, and a Reiki master teacher, which is a mouthful and a lot of things, but sounds really cool. So let's dive right in with Erin today. Hi, Erin.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was nice to meet you. I love doing I have podcasts of my own, but I love doing them and meeting just what people are doing, how they use their gifts, how their gifts have helped them. It's such a cool thing to me, like the power behind it. So thank you.
Same. I enjoy meeting new people. I do like guesting on other people's podcasts. And so one of my goals last year was to be on at least 12 podcast episodes. So like one a month, basically it averaged out to. And I exceeded that goal and made it to 20 podcasts.
Nice.
So yeah, it was really fun. It's so much fun meeting other people. Like you said, seeing like how their podcast works compared to like how I do my podcast. Some only do guests like always, and some did like a mix like I do. In like a month, 3 episodes are like just me and whatever. And then the, one a month is usually me and somebody else. So it kind of keeps it going. And I had, it's just fun. I don't know. I like talking to new people.
Yeah, me too. And it's the one thing I love about it the most is that there's only been one person I've had on my podcast, a spiritual badass, that she's like, I really didn't have that bad of a life. I was like, okay. I mean, it's cool, it's good, but everybody has a reason why they started their spiritual journey, whether, loss or death or whatever it was. So that's kind of my favorite part of and everybody's a little bit different and how they use their gifts and abilities. So it's just really cool to me how, I think healing is you have to take responsibility. And that's what I always say. You have to take responsibility for your healing, your trauma and your pain. And, my anxiety, my panic, my depression, my ADHD, that stuff doesn't get to define me. And it did for 39 years. And now that I'm 45, for the last 6 years, it hasn't, and it changed my life. And that's why I do spiritual, that's why I have a spiritual business now, because it changed my life. I hated my life. Love my husband, love my kids, love our kids. But, when you're always just serving and doing for others and you're miserable and nothing ever works for your anxiety or your panic, and therapy and all of that stuff doesn't work, like I had just given up. So after gastric surgery, I kind of just threw it out to the universe, because God and I hadn't really spoke since my mom died when I was 16. And I was super pissed that he would take like the one person that I wanted and needed. I just threw it out there. I'm like, I need something. And I grew up Catholic, so that's a whole nother bag of worms. It's like off, so I gotta take off all my stuff. So that means they're gonna go deep. It's I don't have to live in survival or control every aspect of my life anymore. And I really got to learn to release and let go. And I do that through past lives and clearing and healing and processing and not stuffing it down. Like there's so many layers to your healing journey, and it's lifelong. Once you start your healing journey, it's still a lifelong journey.
It's not like 6 weeks later and everything's good and you never have to do it again.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with some people these days where the quantum, let's just release it in 5 minutes, you'll be done. I'm like, dude, it doesn't work like that. It's so misleading to me that people are promoting all of this quantum stuff, because some stuff is deep and it takes time to process and understand it. Yes, you can clear stuff. I clear stuff all the time, this life and past lives, but you still have to do the work when it shows up, like your problems aren't going to be solved. If problems were solved, like we would all be fucking millionaires who never worked. Like, you know what I mean? Like I struggle with it. How do you feel
Which I would totally love.
Yeah.
To, be a millionaire and have everything just fixed. 100% understand that. But no, I'm with you on the same page as that. Like healing is a journey. It's not a one-stop shop where you go in and you get everything you need, and then like 6 weeks later you're good and you never have to ever see that shop again. It takes time, and things are inevitably gonna come back up. Even things that you thought you healed, something will trigger it and you'll be like, crap, okay, now we're going back to that again, I guess. It happens. I had a very traumatic upbringing with my family and abusive parents. And so, there's still stuff that comes up, especially now having my own kids, because I understand even less now why they were the way they were, instead of, people is like, oh, well, you'll understand your parents better when you have kids. And I understand them less now because I have kids and I could never imagine treating my kids the way they treated me. Uh, so that was a trigger, having children and been like realizing that, oh, fuck, this is even more fucked up than I realized. Back to therapy I go, back to my tools I go, because something is triggering it, because you just realize that, something has brought it back up again, the stuff that you thought you had healed. And then I got married to my husband now, and that brought up some more stuff because I had been married. It was not a great relationship, very traumatic in that too, because again, I was coming straight from my family life, which taught me not to see these red flags as red flags. And so I wound up in a relationship with somebody that I probably shouldn't be in one with. And so that was huge. And so when I found him, my husband now, that's like amazing and like the exact opposite of everybody else that I had been with, it was great. And that brought up some more stuff because my family was unhappy because he wasn't the type of person they thought I should be with, right? I didn't find him at church, so he must not be a good human being. I mean, I was like, well, I found the first husband at church and that didn't work out so well, so I think I'm going to try a different route. I told my grandma,
for me, a red flag is I'm a good Christian. To me, is a red flag word. Good Christians are the shadiest motherfuckers you're ever going to meet. So if people are
that
like,
is
I'm
a huge
Christian,
red flag.
I'm like, no, that means you are literally the shadiest of shady. Just like a politician to me, it's like, oh, good Christian. Ugh.
Same difference. It really is in many ways. And yeah, I'm with you. And as soon as that would come, like, nope, peacing out. I had one who claimed he was a good Christian who told me that I was going to hell because I didn't believe like him. And I looked at him and I said, well, you're not a very good person then, are you? If you're going to run around telling people that they're going to burn in your hell forever because they don't believe exactly like you.
Kind of a very small circle of people in his life, that's for sure.
Eventually, you're going to run pretty much everybody out except for those who hold very similar beliefs, which
or have
is where
absolutely
I find
no
my
sense
family. Yeah.
Ugh.
I grew up in that environment. So now basically anybody who's in that same realm, that religious realm, I'm like, nope, you are just a nope from every angle. Because of that, it was a very traumatic upbringing. So much shit happened that should not have happened and that was excused and pushed under the rug. Stuff that should have had police involved and people going to jail, that kind of stuff. It wasn't just small incidental things. Yeah, it's very, very, very hard for me to interact with anybody from that same circle that I grew up in anymore.
Well, it would be hard to trust in any way. Like, have they healed and done the work? Have they separated?
Right.
That's where I think the best part about our spiritual journeys too is like creating those boundaries. Like, I'm no longer, as we heal, like you just start recognizing that person does not belong in my life. Or you can start separating enough. Like, sometimes you can't always cut people out, but you can cut off their access to you. And then you get to decide how much of you're giving, you know what I mean? And it's a powerful thing to create these boundaries and enforce the boundaries. It all comes with your spiritual journey because you have to have boundaries with spirit. You have to have boundaries with humans. You have to enforce them. It's all part of you and your self-worth and all of the work, and it's that's how I mentor people. I'm like, dude, we got to get rid of the mind fuckery before, you can have a good, easy connection to spirit. And people are like, I just want to connect. I want to do this. I'm like, oh, do you see my light flashing? Spirit likes to flash my lights on a regular basis. God, I feel like I'm in a disco. But, that's as part of it. The less mind fuckery that I have, the easier it is to connect to spirit. So that's how I like to tell people too, that fast, fun, easy connection to spirit. The less that's going on up here, the more freedom you have to connect and to connect your abilities and to help others. And, and it's a hard thing to say because everybody needs something different. Not everybody's traumas were there. You know what I mean? Like, I should start at like 2 or 3, and my stuff was worse than others and not nearly as bad as other people's, but it was enough for me, you know what I mean? And you learn that survival at such a young age. Like, I think I started to learn to survive at 5 or 6, like, surviving life. Like, you have to learn to survive your own life. How do you protect yourself? How do you keep yourself safe? How do you, get what you would need? How do you like that shit is hard, and it's hard pressed to let go of and to release. And, and it's kind of funny as you were talking, like Spirit was kind of saying, like, look at what you have been able to do for your kids though. And I haven't really thought much about that for me and my kids, even though I've told my kids, like, you guys are lucky, we're giving you, you know, I had to grow up totally different than my kids, and probably did that go the extreme way. My husband, you know, he grew up with two parents that loved each other. Like my father-in-law just passed a couple of years ago. Like, and his parents were still in love. I'm like, dude, I did not, you know, that was not my life. And so my kids, our kids, they've had both of us the whole time. They, you know, we're definitely not the gentle parenting type people, but you know, they haven't had to live how I had to live for sure. Even my husband has a hard time understanding it. I had to make sure my brother and I ate. I had to make sure my brother and I got to school. I had to make sure my brother and I got home from school. I had to make sure we had laundry. That shit started young. And our kids, they don't really do too much of that. So it's like, you know, a little extreme, but we got to think too that we're not repeating those patterns. One day my husband goes, well, hopefully our kids are just a little less fucked up than we are. And I'm like, well, I guess that's not lofty goals, but I guess it's better than, you know.
Right. No, I'm with him. I said, honestly, when I had kids, that was my only goal, was to not have to have them go to 5 or 6 years of, you know, continuous therapy like I had to. And if I did that, then I was happy and had succeeded as a parent, because it was such a fucked up upbringing. And I'm 100% the opposite of my parents and how they raised me. And I am 1000% the black sheep in my family, because I'm the one who set out to break all those generational curses and all of that stuff. And I was not okay with just continuing the status quo. Ironically,
the stories hold you back, or your family, or anybody's, whatever they tried to put into you, you didn't let them hold you back, which is huge.
Well, I got 5 planets in Scorpio. There is no making me do anything I don't want to do or continue down a path that I am not happy with, which is why I think my parents and I had such issues growing up. Was, you know, they saw that reflection of themselves in me with all that Scorpio, and they didn't like what they were seeing, so they took it out on me like it was my fault, instead of just going and, you know, doing the work that they should have been doing. But they live in constant denial of lots of things because of their religious beliefs. So it's not surprising they're also living in denial of, you know, what they need to change. But it was rough. And when I removed myself from that situation a few years back and completely cut contact with so many people in my life, because that was just what was needed, and still is. So we still are maintaining that. When I removed myself from the situation, because we very much had a black sheep and golden child dynamic in my family that my sister got missed on, because she was the middle kid. I was the oldest that was the black sheep. My brother was the youngest and the golden child, and she kind of just got forgotten about. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I'm not really sure which one would be, you know,
maybe a blessing, maybe.
Yeah. But when I remove myself, you know, families that have those unhealthy dynamics still need those unhealthy dynamics to continue. And when I left, then someone else had to fill that black sheep role. So they stuck my sister in there, because you obviously can't put the golden child in there, you know. And that happened, and they started doing things to her that they had been doing to me my whole life, that I had, you know. And initially, when I had cut contact with my parents, my sister and her husband had cut contact with us, because all they heard was my mom and dad's side of the story, which of course was 100% not actually how things out, or any responsibility on their end was mentioned, you know. And so after, like, I don't know, it was a couple of years that I didn't speak to my sister, and we'd been best friends forever. So it was really hard. But her husband reached out to me and was like, hey, you know, we are so sorry. You were right. Your parents are crazy, and they're starting to do what you were saying they did to you, to your sister now. And she's miserable and she's crying all the time. And I don't know what to do. Are you willing to talk to us again so that you can help your sister? Because she's miserable. And I said, yeah, because I still love my sister and I still want to spend time with her. And they've ended up having to cut my parents off too now, because of the stuff that they were doing to her. And my sister was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have believed you. I should have believed you. They are absolutely crazy. And I don't know how I missed this growing up. And I said, well, you had a much different experience with our parents than I did, because you were, the kind of the forgotten child in a way, which has worked in some, benefit to her, but also, is also detrimental, because she literally couldn't see how they were treating me, because her experience was radically different with my parents than mine was.
Isn't it? And it's interesting when you think about that dynamic too. Like, how could you be in a family and not know? How could you be in, but it's when people are that conniving is the word that is like coming to me. But when people are that dynamic with how they choose, you know what I mean? It's this innate, like, it's like this bullying, you know what I mean? It's such a hard space, you know, because you could have easily told your sister to fuck right off, you know what I mean? And the reality is that, you know, she had that awareness, and she asked for help. Like, she didn't just leave herself hanging out in the wind, you know what I mean? She admitted, you know, and her even husband admitted, you know, that they're, you know, and that's a big deal. And to recognize, and sometimes, like, my mom passed when I was young, so I was 16, and I loved my mom, but she was never there. She was never there to keep me safe. She was never there, you know. If I wanted to see my mom, I had to go to work with her. So she's been gone since I was 16, and I'm 45. So some things have been coming up with that, like some anger towards her. Like, I really wasn't protected. I really wasn't, you know what I mean? And so there's anger with her even. And like, that's okay for me to have that, because the reality was, you know, I didn't get what I needed. I just, like I said, you learn to survive at a young age, so you don't think about it until you start really processing your trauma and stuff. And you're just like, oh, because security, like, I left my corporate position last year because they were just treating me, they tried to get me to sign an NDA. Let's say that. They were treating me so poorly, and I was like, I just can't do it anymore. A lot of stuff with security came up for me. Like, the only time I've ever been financially secure is working for people who treat me like shit. So a lot with security has come up over the last year. And that was kind of part of it. Like, I loved my mom, but she had to work so much to provide for my brother and I that, you know, she wasn't there. You know what I mean? She wasn't there. She wasn't there to rely on, or to be with at night, or to have dinner with, or anything. Like, if I wanted to see her, I had to go to the newspaper, or deliver newspapers with her overnight, or make donuts, or whatever the fucking job, you know, jobs she was doing. So, you know, it's that realization and allowing yourself to have anger or whatever, upsetness of, you know, with a parent or a pattern or something. But it's like learning, you know, how do you need to process it and release it and let it go, so you don't harbor it and hold on to it, because the harboring and holding on to, that's where it fucks with you know?
Yep. Fucks with your mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, physical health. Everything starts tanking, and that's why. And that was a big part of all the stuff that I've been doing with my spiritual path, is releasing so much of that anger towards the fact that once I had my own children, I started realizing even more just how, like, fucked up it was, my childhood. And I was like, and it started bringing a lot of things up, like you said, and security was a huge one of them for me, because my parents never really made me feel safe. They were there, they were more present than, you know, maybe some other parents were, but there wasn't, even when they were present, there wasn't a lot of, like, safety around that. Like, and there was a huge difference too in the fact, like, if my brother had gotten in trouble at school, my mom would be driving there and immediately defending him and his actions to the principal. But if I got in trouble, they go, oh yeah, that's just Iron. You know, that's just what she does. That's who she is. There was no going to my aid. There was no trying to help me. There was no, like, defense. It was just, oh yeah, whatever. You know, that's just who she is. I think I remember, like, twice in, like, my whole, you know, school history of my parents actually, like, sticking up for me at, like, when something happened at school. And both times were when I was actually standing up to bullies that were picking on my brother. Neither one of them had anything to do with me, you know? And so it was, you know, that's really what I was taught, was that my parents weren't, like, safe people. I couldn't go to them for things. When I would tell them things, even if it was just, like, something that happened to me and I just wanted someone to talk to about it and get some advice, they would find ways to, like, get me in trouble or punish for the stuff. Yeah. It was like my mom used to say about my grandma, but it ended up really being more apropos for her, was anything you say can and will be misconstrued and used against you. And she used to say that's what my grandma did, but that's exactly what my mother did. It was very much a projection on her end.
Yeah.
And so it made it really hard to say anything to him, because anything you said was never safe. They weren't like the parents that if I had snuck out of the house in the middle of the night, was at a party, and found myself in a bad situation, I couldn't call to have them come get me out of the bad situation and then later and everything was safe, we were all calmed down, we would have a discussion, right? We've done that with our kids. Like, look, if you want to go to a party, then we'll take you to the damn party. You don't have to sneak out of the damn house to go. But and we'll drop you off. If you get there, it's a bad situation. Something bad happens. You decide you're going to try drugs or alcohol or whatever, and now you're not feeling safe, call us. We'll come get you. We don't care what time of day or night it is. We'll come pick you up. We will be there. And then, you know what? When everybody is sober the next day and all the tensions are gone and we've kind of died down, so we'll have a discussion about why this was a poor choice and how to correct it in the future. You know, punishments if necessary. We don't really do punishments. We just do more like natural consequences. The natural consequence of going and taking drugs or alcohol is the really horrible hangover you're going to have the next day. You already feel like shit. I don't have to do anything else to you. You have learned to not do that, you know? But it's such a different household than when I was raised in, where everything was punitive.
Well, and, you know, I think it's hard too teaching them like that's, you know, my daughter's 18, almost 19, you know, her and her boyfriend went camping with some of his friends. And I'm like, but she's like, you're just paranoid, Mom. I'm like, I'm not, honey. You need to be cautious. Like, no one needs to walk you to the bathroom at the campsite. Like, you know, she's like, they're his friends. I'm like, honey, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh my God, she's being naive, but then she thinks I'm paranoid. But then sometimes Spirit's like, hey, she needs to be extra cautious when she goes here, she goes there. So Spirit's kind of like warning me, you know, and she has her gifts and abilities that she uses too. But, you know, it's really that awareness for them. Like, you know, hey, we're not trying to tell you what to do. We're trying to prevent you from, you know, making choices that are going to fuck up your life. And, you know, and it's
get yourself into a bad situation.
Yeah.
Typically on accident. Most young adults, teenagers aren't attempting to purposely get themselves in bad situations. It just happens because their decision-making skills aren't completely developed yet. They're just not.
Yeah. And I think that is a struggle for me because I had to be such a responsible person at such a young age where my kids haven't really, you know, had to have that kind of life, you know what I mean, that life experience. So that's definitely been a struggle with us and my son, not so much yet, but my daughter, it's kind of like, how much do you let her string her noose? Like, how much do you know? Right. And it's like, well, you know, because here with all the blizzards, it's like, no driving. So, you know, I have to drive her and her boyfriend in the middle of the night, take her to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, but she's like, I'm an adult and I can do. I'm like, no. You know, you need practice before you know, so there's some things where it's just like, no, but, you know, it's just that place of, you know, and, you know, they get mad at me because I've had to fight for them in their IEPs in school and their disabilities. And they're like, I don't want to be stupid. I don't want to do therapy. I said, you are lucky that you have somebody that is fighting for you in school. My mom was a genius. She was super smart. She didn't understand that I struggled in school. So she was like, why can't you be smart like your brother? Why can't you do these things? And I'm like, Mom, I study fucking hours a night, like hours, and I can't get it. Like, nothing. So my kids are, you know, they're mad because I'm like fighting for them with the school system, getting their IEPs, making sure that they're getting what they need, you know, and they're like, I don't want to blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, just
enjoy the fact you have someone in your corner.
Yeah, just take it.
They will appreciate it one day for sure. Like when we get older, you start realizing more things about your parents. For some of us, it's realizing that they were worse than we remember. And for others, it's realizing that, hey, my parents actually were decent human beings who were just, you know, really attempting to be good parents. And sometimes they messed it up because they're human beings too. But overall, they were, you know, good parents. You know?
Yep. Yeah, you definitely hope for that.
Yeah. I know that's the one thing. That's really my only thing I want to do as a parent is just not fuck the kids up so badly that they need, you know, years and years and years of therapy like I did.
Yep.
So that's always good. How did you? We all go through our spiritual journey and whatever gets us there. Mine happened right at my Saturn return, which I don't know is such a great thing to have happen at the same time as everything else that happened, but that's when mine occurred. I had my daughter, realized that I needed to get out of my marriage at the time, realized that the religion that I grew up in I'd always thought it was bullshit, but then I really discovered that it was 100% bullshit. And so I left all of that. So the only thing I really knew and the only community that I had ever had. So I left all that behind. I mean, it was just like a ton of transitions and a lot of trial and error on finding my way, and eventually led me to where I am now. and, very open about being a witch and practicing witchcraft. I'm totally into astrology, which, for my thing, medical astrology mainly for my clients, but I use regular astrology for myself and that kind of stuff, and getting into all of my things, all of my cards and my runes and my all of my stuff. And that led me down the path where I met my now husband, who is 100% like a pagan and never was actually raised in the church like I was. So it was really nice to meet somebody who was kind of a little further ahead in like how they lived their life in that type of spiritual practice, and show me that it's possible. And I'm not crazy for wanting to go this path. And so that kind of happened between the ages of like 28 and like 32, and I really finally like came into my own, and it's been wonderful. Of course, not everybody starts off so rocky. Hopefully yours didn't, but how did you get to where you are now?
So I was 39 and I had gastric sleeve surgery. I had been in a race accident in 2012, and I broke my ankle and tore my ACL on the same leg. And then I took like 8 or 9 months to like have surgery and to finally heal, because they didn't believe me. Something was wrong, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as I got that healed, then my right knee started to give out. I was in a lot of pain. And so for years, so from like 2013 to 2017, I had MRIs and shots and PRP or PCP, plasma, whatever, platelets and cortisone and the Synvesc shots in my knee. And they missed a simple meniscus tear. So it turned into severe osteoarthritis. In that time, my weight had skyrocketed because I couldn't really walk. I was in pain all the time. And then they had talked about this surgery for my knee. It's called a high tibial osteotomy. So they cut a big part of your leg bone out, and then they put a plate and some screws in, because it's supposed to adjust how you walk. Because they were hoping it would buy me 10 years of being able to be physically active like I prefer, like running and hiking and doing stuff. I couldn't take the kids anywhere. I couldn't do anything. If they had an event at school, I'm like, oh my God, how far do I have to park? Like it was that bad. Like I couldn't walk,
Yeah.
But he's like, I'll be honest. He goes, at 326 pounds, 300 whatever pounds, he goes, you're not going to be able to, because I had to be non-weight bearing for 3 months. So like full crutches for 3 months. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So, he's like, you need to lose at least 10% of your body weight. And I had kind of gone back and forth on gastric sleeve a little bit. And I just thought it was the easy way out and blah, 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 blah. But, I was 39 when I had it. So I had been fighting with my weight since I was like 18, 19. You know what I mean? So I had gastric sleeve, and then in that recovery, so it was like December 20th of 2017, I just remembered like throwing it out to the universe and just saying, hey, I need something. I hate my life. I hate it. I go to work every day. I take care of other people. There's no joy. There's no happiness. There's nothing besides paying bills, coming home and just being miserable. Within, like I said, when my mom died at 16, so I grew up Catholic. So, there's, another religious trauma in there. And I never resonated with it, never really felt connected to God in it. And then, so I really broke up with God when my mom died, because I was like, fuck you. If you can't, be here at the one time I need you, then whatever. So I really didn't talk to God for a long time. And then when I was in that recovery process, I remember writing it in this small journal, because it was like almost the new year. I was like, I need something. What do I need? Because I'd done therapy. I'd done medication for my anxiety, the panic, all of the shit in between. And nothing had ever lasted or moved the needle. So within a couple of weeks, I met my spiritual mentor, and she's like, I think you need to do Reiki for chronic pain. Not like have sessions, but like be attuned to Reiki. So so I'm like, well, can you teach that online? And she's like, I don't know. So she kind of asked me. She's like, yeah. So I started doing Reiki attunements on Zoom, and then it just kickstarted my intuition. Nothing really didn't make sense. Let's say it like that. I've always had deja vu dreams, premonition dreams, know what people are thinking. It's like a super empath, where I can just take stuff off of people. Like I always like to say, like a serial killer could sit next to me and they would confess all of their everything to me. And I never really could understand it, but I could just always talk to anybody and get out of them. Not because I'm a gossiper, but I just know something's wrong. And all of those parts started to make sense. And then my intuition really kicked on. So I started mediumship and working in past lives and, shamanic healing and those different aspects. So the more that I dove in, because I always do them for myself first. And then if they apply, to what I'm doing for others, then I add them in. But so when I started Reiki, I started to meditate, and it took me a while to calm my mind. I have ADHD, anxiety, all of that stuff. So it took me time to calm my mind. And that's why I say we have to calm the mind fuckery. The calmer that my mind and body and soul was, the easier and faster it was for me to connect to spirit. So meditation for me was the thing. And not giving up and not shoving them back down. Like every time something hard comes up, I figure out what am I supposed to be doing with it. So, and that was really how it started. It just kickstarted, and I was able to really start releasing this shit from my soul and healing and understanding it. And why is this happening? And if it's a past life, and if it's making things worse today, whatever it is. And, and still, it's always still about just growing and moving forward. You still have some of the stuff come up and trigger you, but it's not who I am anymore. You know what I mean? So
100%.
I might have a day where it's kind of like, fuck it, fuck everything, fuck it all. And then the next day is my rational day is what I say, okay, what do we do about this? So that that light and fluffy, everything is sunshine and rainbows and you can have all the money you want and just take this glorious bath and just ask for it. It's total bullshit. You still have to go through the emotion and the heaviness and the hard stuff. I don't love that bathtub bullshit because it's not true. You know what I mean? And it just gives people a false hope. Yeah.
It can help, but it's a tool
perception
in the toolbox. It's not it's not a fix it all, solution for sure. And I love water as a tool for cleansing, mainly because I have so much water in my chart that water works really well for me. But I understand that doesn't work super well for everybody. It's not a fix it 100% problem solution. You know what I mean? I still have to do the hard work that comes with that. But it does help me to move that needle forward on what I need to do,
Yep.
Definitely a great tool. 100% believe that. But yeah, it definitely, some of this stuff I see out there anymore is just mind-boggling that people are just putting that out there and they don't care that it's not actually helping people, and B, might actually be harming some people. And as long as they're getting their money for it, they don't care. And I don't work that way in my business or my life. And so it's really hard for me to see that, because I just want to be like, oh my God, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But it is not my job or my role in this trip around the sun to, call out every single person that I see in their bullshit, I mean, there's always going to be charlatans out there and people that are just out to make a quick buck off of other people's suffering.
Yep.
Those of us
I've
that
had to
don't
clear
do it,
some really bad mentors from people lately, especially spiritual mentors, which is shocking. I probably cleared 10 people of bad mentors in the last 6 months. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's rough because I deal with the medical side and women who are dealing with hormonal issues and fertility issues and all this stuff. They've been dismissed and not heard a lot by a lot of the health practitioners they've gone to. And so a big piece of the first part of working together is just listening to them, just letting them talk about whatever they need to that we can get out. And then once they've gotten that out, then it's much easier to work on fixing whatever is going on, because they've been able to, talk out some of the shit that they had to go through before they found me. And I am happy to sit there and listen, because I've had similar things happen to me when I've, used modern medicine for things, so I get it. It's not easy.
Yeah, the doctors, it's a struggle. If it doesn't show up on a lab test, so now I really have had to, I just push and I just say what I want. This is what I want. If I want this test, if I want this medicine, whatever, it's not open for really negotiation anymore. Sometimes I have to jump through hoops and see specialists, but I'm not really in the, just letting them tell me, you know what I mean? It's no, I want this, and this is what I want, and this is, but yeah, definitely. It's a hard, the medical world, it doesn't show up on a medical test. Most normal doctors won't do nothing about it.
Consider doing anything about it. And I find that funny, because labs are literally just a snapshot of that moment in time when they drew the lab. So at that moment in time, literally, you might have had maybe a 30-minute window where everything was normal in your body, and that's when they drew the lab. So everything looks fine, but truly it's not. There's a lot more going on than that 30-minute window of when they drew the labs, you know?
Yep.
And so it doesn't always give a 100% picture of what's truly happening inside the body.
Yep.
Helps,
100%.
but again, it's a tool, and it shouldn't be the be all end all of whether or not you receive the help that you need, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. I know it's so disheartening when you need answers, you need results, you know. I mean, I've had 3 knee surgeries on my right leg, so it's, you know, they're like, oh, well, we can do another knee replacement. I'm like, no, the first one wasn't that great. I don't want to sign up for it. I mean, I know I have to have one every 10 years, but I'm like, well, I don't want to just do it to do it. Like, no.
Right? Yeah. They're like, no, thank you. Not really up for that. That's the one thing I was a nurse for a really long time before I moved into what I do now. And one of the things that I did as a nurse for a while was orthopedics. And the one thing I said when I became an orthopedic nurse was they made us go and watch some of the orthopedic surgeries and how they do them so that we would understand like how much pain our patients were truly in and how to really assess it, and just, you know, kind of have more empathy toward people who had, you know, had these procedures done. And I will tell you now, after watching how they do the majority of those surgeries, I will literally like crawl for the rest of my life before I go get any sort of joint replacement.
And that, you know, and explaining to the doctors, like, I saw the specialist of specialists here, and then the guy that has done my last 3 knee surgeries, and I'm like, look, have you had any surgery? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to explain it to you. It takes me a full year to recover the swelling, sitting down. I said, that is normal. So I have to explain to them what is the process. I'm like, dude, this is my 4th fucking knee surgery. Like, I'm not taking advice from you. I'm telling you how it's going to be because, you know, I know what pain is normal and what pain isn't. So, you know, it's,
and you know your body.
Yeah, it's a hard thing, especially if they've never had a knee surgery. Yeah, you might talk to people every day, but if you've never been like for a full year after a knee replacement or any knee surgery, like the swelling and the weather change and like it's exacerbated, the pain is so extreme, you know, for the first year. And it's like, they're just like, really? I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, don't try to school me, dude. I know.
I actually, back in the day, this was back in like 2007, 2008. So this was completely unheard of at the time. I actually took care of a patient who had a bilateral hip replacement. He literally looked for 3 years before he found a doctor who was willing to replace both hips at the same time. Because they would do both knees, but they usually wouldn't do both hips because it's such it's a longer recovery. It's a lot more pain. It's a lot more issues. And they were afraid that most of them were afraid if they did both at once that he wouldn't get to the recovery. His hips would lock up and he would be stuck, you know. But he insisted that he knew his body well enough to know that if he went and got one done and then had to wait to get the second one, he would never do the second one because the pain from the first would just deter him. So he was like, no, I need both of them. I want them both done at once because I don't want to have to come back because I will not come back. I know myself. And he finally found one of our docs that decided that they would go ahead and do it. And let me tell you, he was in a ton of pain. I have never seen a more motivated patient to get up out of bed and start moving and do the stuff so that he didn't get like literally frozen hips and then get stuck with never being able to have the mobility again. He was very determined. So I do give him props for that because we don't see that a lot in patients that have double anything done because it is so painful. And I mean, you know, total props to anybody who can just be like immediately jumping up and running around because it's not easy.
Well, and that's what I do. Like with mine,
insane.
like I know exactly how to stiffen my leg to move it, and they're just like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "This is my 4th knee surgery." I just had another one in July. Many times. Like they're like, "Oh my god," because I know how to stiffen it to like lift, and even though it's painful, like I know exactly how to stiffen, lift, and you know what I mean, and you know, do crutches and whatever. And they're just like, oh my God, like you should give lessons. I'm like, yeah, I should, you know, like, yeah, because you got to learn how to do it, you know? No.
Yeah, no, could never do a PT's job. I loved my PTs when I was a nurse because they were amazing people, but I don't know where they got all that patience from because I did not have enough to be a PT. Yeah, I barely had enough to be a nurse some days.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I mean, people are always coming in with pain, you know?
Yeah. And especially since pandemic, patients have gotten worse. And I don't mean like their health has gotten worse for sure. That's definitely a big factor. But people have gotten worse. They're meaner to healthcare staff than they've ever been. They're super entitled. They're awful. They think they're in like a fucking hotel instead of a hospital. They're demanding. They scream and yell at the nurses. They get physically violent. They get up in your face yelling at you about stuff that you have no control over. I mean, like their food tray came cold from the cafeteria. I'm sorry, I have literally no fucking control over when dietary decides to show up with your food. But I'm the one who's having things thrown at me, and I have my life threatened because they had a cold hamburger, you know? And when you offer to heat it up, they throw the tray at you, and you're like, well, then fine, have no food. I mean, that's your, you know? And it just got worse and worse and worse. And people are just, the patients are so bad anymore, and their families are even worse, that you just don't even want to go to work anymore because you're tired of being verbally and physically assaulted every day. And that's part of the big reason why I retired, was because I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I cannot go here and be trying to help you feel better, and you're verbally and physically assaulting me and threatening my life because you don't like the fact that I didn't get to you with the pain pill exactly when it was due, because I have other patients to see besides you. You're not my only patient, you know? And it just got too hard to handle anymore. And I got to the point I didn't want to get up and go to work. I could barely drag myself out of bed to go and get that. And then you have management that doesn't back you up and is also verbally assaulting you all day.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just is like a continuous cycle of bullshit and crap all day, every day, that you just don't want to go through anymore. And nurses are leaving like crazy from the profession. And they're like, well, we don't have anybody who wants to come work for us. Well, no shit. You let us get treated like crap. You let people bring weapons into the hospital because you don't screen anybody. And they're assaulting and killing nurses left and right. Yeah, no wonder none of us want to come back. Gee.
Jeez, no
Shocker.
kidding.
So that's, yeah, and it's really hard. Like, I get people are in pain. I understand that. I've been in pain. I had endometriosis for years. I get what chronic pain can feel like, and that it's miserable. It is. But screaming and assaulting the person who's trying to make you feel better and bring stuff to help is not exactly the way to go about getting what you want,
Yeah.
which is to feel better. And
Yep.
it got to the point where I could not do it anymore and be nice to people anymore. And I felt like I was becoming a person as a nurse that I didn't want to be. I didn't want to give my patients that kind of care where I was like the cranky, horrible nurse, you know? And so I left before I became that bitter, nasty nurse that nobody wants, and moved into doing my business, where it's so much nicer. People are coming to me because they want help, and they're taking responsibility for their health and their actions and how to change things. And they want to get better, and they're willing to do whatever it takes, instead of blame someone else for the fact that they still don't feel well when they've done literally nothing that you have said will help them feel better, you know?
Yep, 100%. And I think that's the big, I mean, I have quite a few therapists that come to me because they want to, do more with spiritual work, because, and therapy, I mean, I think it can work, but how many people actually, you know what I mean, take responsibility?
And if it's
they're
not a
either forced
holistic
to go
approach,
because there's not a lot of like even give and take, and like the support is pretty one-sided because it's like they're bound by whatever rules and restrictions they have, or whatever it is. But it's,
I get that too. It's hard. It's
their spouse says they have to go, or they'll leave, or the judge makes them do it, or whatever. Like they're not invested in it, they're just doing what they're going
through the motions because they're required to, for whatever reason, right? If I don't come, my wife's going to leave me, or my husband's going to leave me. Well, then you're not coming because you actually want to. You're coming because somebody put an ultimatum to you. And if you don't want to come, then just don't. Just leave that relationship and then work on yourself separately,
Yeah.
Because you want to, because you see a problem, because you see that you need to take responsibility for the actions that you brought to that relationship that caused the demise of it.
Yep. 100%.
Yep. It's rough. It really is. I feel for anybody who's trying to work in the like modern medicine field right now. It's soul sucking. And me having my spiritual practice is literally one of the only things that kept me going for as long as it did, was having that to like sustain me, fall back on, to help me move through a lot of the shit that was happening to me as a nurse, and then again taking responsibility for what I could in those situations. Some of it was literally there was nothing you could do that was going to change the situation, but what I could, I did, and that helped. But it's wasn't 100% solution, because when you're in that kind of environment, the only way to prevent it from really seeping into every aspect of your life is to leave it.
Yep. That was
Get
my
out of it.
corporate position that I left last year. I mean, I was at that position for 10 and a half years, you know, and it's Spirit kind of finally had said in November, after another bad incident had happened, they're like, okay, so they just showed me the trust fall. They're like, okay, if you leave, you'll be supported, you know, and by early January, I was like, okay, I'm done.
Off we go. Yeah. Well, that's what I told the universe last year. I said, I am done nursing and I'm going to be done by this date. I'm going to quit. I'm going to retire. That's going to be it. I mean, I had 21 years under my belt. It's not like I needed to, you know, keep going if I wanted to or not. I had enough time. I put in my time. It wasn't for lack of trying on my part. But I said, I'm done. I'm going to retire. I'm going to leave. This is the date that I'm leaving by. And I am trusting you that I'm going to step out of that field. I'm going to step more into my business, because it's always been like a side thing, right? I'm going to make this my full-time thing. I'm going to step into it. And I am trusting that you are going to fucking provide, and I'm not going to fall off this cliff and hit the bottom. I trust there's going to be a safety net somewhere along the way that is going to catch me. Since doing that, it has been so different. It has been such a change. I feel it just, even if anything else, just in me, like I feel like I feel fully involved in my business now. I feel fully like into it. Like I can really help my patients. Like I feel so much different about it, that it's helped so many things, because I'm not worried all the time about everything else going on in my life. You know?
Yeah. I mean, because it was like I was in that field for 25 years, marketing, design, graphic design, you know, marketing management. I mean, I still do some of it, but you know, it's different. In my spiritual business, I've been building for years. So it's different, and it's different. Like, okay, well, I don't have to really hide myself anymore. Like, and you know, then you have to figure out how do you put yourself out there, and how do you be the real self? Like, you've had to hide who you are in a sense when you're in that kind of that world for whatever reason or another, and you get to come out into the world, and you're like, okay, but you got to figure that out too. Like, talk about what you really do and knowing the power of it. Like, it's a process too, when you know, you're trying to shed that trauma of having to mask. I always had to mask myself to fit in at that place, because I was always labeled difficult, even though I never did anything to be difficult. You know what I mean? So that was how they labeled me, difficult. Nobody wanted to work with me. I was too difficult. I'm like, okay, you've never written me up. You've never talked to me. You've never, you know, but I'm difficult.
You've taken no steps.
Yeah.
No, I feel that too. I was really glad to get out of nursing, more glad than I could probably ever express to anybody. Unless you've been in that type of situation, whether it's in nursing itself or in another toxic type of like work situation, it's really hard to understand just like what like relief you feel when you no longer have to go there every day.
Yep. And it's still, I mean, it's just kind of coming up on a year, and it's like some days I'm just like, remember, this is what you were working for. Like you kind of just go on to the next thing. So it's like, I gotta try to remember as well, like, this is what you've been working for. Like, you know, you don't have to work, you get to work. You know what I mean?
Grateful.
It's that shift too of like, okay, you've worked for years for this. So, you know, because some days you're just like, fuck, you know what I mean? You're just like, fuck, I don't want to do anything. You're just so tired. But it's like, I've been really shifting that space of, oh, I got to work today. Like, no, I get to work. Like, this is what I've wanted, you know? So keeping yourself in that space too. And it's definitely, again, it's not about being perfect. It's about just showing up and being present and being real, and don't, you know, not faking it till you make it. Like, be honest and just be real. And, you know, being an entrepreneur is hard. So be honest about it, you know?
100%. Unfortunately, our time is up. So we have got to go, everybody. But thank you for tuning in and listening to us today. I hope you enjoyed it. Erin, can you let everybody know where they can find you? And it'll be in the show notes as well, guys.
Absolutely. So vintagemoons.com is my website. And then Facebook, Erin Stabile Vintage Moons, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, all of them, usually Erin Vintage Moons or Vintage Moons Erin, one of the combo. So, but I think you can find them all on my website too. So.
All right. Sounds good. All of that will be in the show notes, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. I appreciate you all. Until next time, love and light. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Alchemy, Astrology, and Astro Health. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed making it. You can find all relevant links to today's show in the show notes below. If you loved the show today, please subscribe, follow, and leave me a review. I love to hear your thoughts, and it helps me know what is a hit and to make more of that content, especially for you. If you want to learn more about me and how I can help you, head over to atlaastrology.com. There you can sign up for a medical astrology package, download my free Sun Sign in Your Health ebook, read the blog, and so much more. If you want to connect more outside the podcast, follow my Instagram channel @AtlaAstrology or join my Astro Connection community, the link to which you can find in the show notes. Until next time, love and light.